guys, welcome back to Tales of Olympus, the podcast where we dive into the wildest, most dramatic, and sometimes just downright unbelievable stories from Greek mythology. I'm your host, Ariel, and I have recovered, and I am not sick anymore. So this is a great news. Anyways, today we have a guest. Shin, my mom. She's here to say hello for the 20th time.
Hello.
Okay, now let's get on with the episode. Last time, we survived the ghosts of the underworld, and we've survived the hypnotic song of the sirens. But today, we're entering a narrow hallway of water. On one side, a monster that eats anything that breathes. On the other, a whirlpool that swallows the entire ocean. There's no safe way through this one. As the ship enters the narrow strait, the air turns cold and salty. Odysseus stands at the prow, wearing his full bronze armor and clutching two long spears. He's looking up at the misty cliffs of Scylla. Circe warned him that Scylla is a creature with 12 dangling feet and 6 long, snaky necks. Each neck ends in a terrifying head with 3 rows of jagged teeth. She yaps like a dog, but she has the hunger of a prehistoric shark. On the other side of the ship, the crew is staring in horror at Charybdis. Now, you might be thinking, isn't Charybdis the monster? Well, let me tell you this short little story. Originally, she was a daughter of Poseidon and Gaia. Zeus cursed her and turned her into a monster with a giant, never-ending hunger. The whirlpool is actually just her breathing. 3 times a day, she takes a massive gulp of the ocean. Because she is so huge, when she swallows, it creates a spinning vortex that sucks everything, ships, whales, sailors, down into her throat. And 3 times a day, she belches the water back out, which makes the sea boil and foam like a giant cauldron. So, if the ship gets caught in that spinning vortex, everyone dies. Odysseus has to make the hardest decision of his life. He steers the ship closer to the cliffs of Scylla. He knows he will lose exactly 6 men to her 6 heads. But if he goes towards the whirlpool, he will lose the entire ship and everyone on board.
Captain, look! The water! To the right! It's boiling! The earth is opening up! We're going to be sucked down into the throat of the sea! Why are we hugging these rocks? We're too close to the cliffs! Odysseus, pull away!
Eurylochus said, trembling with pure terror. But Odysseus doesn't answer. He can't tell his men. He has already sacrificed 6 of them to save the rest. He watches Scylla with white knuckles, waiting for the strike from above. Suddenly, from a high dark cavern in the cliff, 6 necks shoots down like lightning bolts. The yapping turns into a roar of triumph as the monster strikes the deck.
Odysseus, drop the spears. You cannot fight a mortal monster with bronze. Row for their lives,
Athena says, watching from Mount Olympus. But it all happened in a heartbeat. 6 of the best men were snatched right off the deck, dangling in the air like fish on a hook. As Scylla hauled them up into her cave, they reached out their hands, screaming Odysseus' name one last time, begging for help that couldn't come. It is the most heartbreaking moment in the whole voyage, because for the first time, the hero had no tricks left. He just had to watch them disappear. The crew rose with the strength of the ghosts, their eyes fixed straight ahead, trying to ignore the screams echoing from the rocks above. They burst through the strait in the open water, shaking and weeping for their lost friends. But even as they catch their breath, a new smell drifts over the waves. The smell of sweet grass and roasting meat. They are approaching the island of the sun, and the ultimate test of their obedience is about to begin. But just as they think they've found a paradise to rest in, again and again, they realize they've landed on Thrinacia, the private island of Helios, the god of the sun. And on this island, there's one rule: look, but don't touch. Now, I need to cut a short break. You might be wondering, if you are new listeners, you'll think, Helios? Isn't Apollo the god of the sun? Well, you're technically right. But Helios faded away after getting no more followers, and Apollo took over. If you want to listen more about that story, you can go back to our first 1 and 2 seasons, Helios versus Apollo. There's the complete detailed story there. Alright, break over. Now, as the ship pulls onto the golden sands, the smell of sweet clover fills the air. Everywhere the men look, they see magnificent herds of snow-white cattle with horns that glitter like polished gold. These are the sacred pets of the sun god. Odysseus, remembering the terrifying warnings from both Circe and the ghost of Tiresias, gathers his hungry men on the beach. His face is grim, and his voice is shaking with the weight of a prophecy. Listen to me. We stay on the beach. We eat the red wine and the bread Circe gave us, and nothing else. These cows belong to the sun god Helios, who sees and hears everything in the world. If we touch even one of them, the gods will destroy our ship and every soul on it. Do not tempt the heavens. The crew mutters their assent. But then, the weather turns. For an entire month, a fierce south wind blows, pinning the ship to the shore. They can't sail away. The bread runs out. The wine runs out. The men are forced to hunt for tiny fish and birds, their stomachs twisting with hunger. One morning, Odysseus, feeling the heavy pressure of leadership, walks deep into the island to find a quiet place to pray to the gods for a change in the wind. While the king is away, the big brain energy on the ship disappears. Eurylochus, the second in command, gathers the starving sailors. He looks at the fat, healthy cattle wandering nearby and makes a desperate, dangerous speech.
Friends, all deaths are miserable, but dying of hunger is the worst way to go. Why should we starve while these fat cows walk right past us? Let's take the best of the herd and sacrifice them to the gods. If Helios gets angry, we'll build him a magnificent temple when we get back to Ithaca. I'd rather die in a shipwreck with a full stomach than waste away on this beach.
The hungry men don't need much convincing. They round up the finest cows, slaughter them, and begin to roast the meat. When Odysseus wakes up from his prayer and starts walking to the shore, the smell hits him, the rich, savory scent of cooking beef. He realized instantly that his life's work was falling apart. At that same moment, Lampetia, the daughter of the sun god, flies to their father with the news. Helios is beyond furious. He goes to Zeus and demands justice. He threatens that if the crew isn't punished, he will stop shining in the sky and take the sun down to the underworld to shine for the dead instead. Zeus, wanting to keep the world in balance, makes a terrifying promise.
Keep shining, Helios. I will strike their ship with white-hot thunderbolts the moment they hit the open sea.
For 6 days, the crew feasts, ignoring the strange omens. The hides of the dead cows begins to crawl, and the meat on the spits began to low and moo even as it's cooking. On the 7th day, the wind finally drops. They set sail, thinking they've gotten away with it. But as soon as they lose sight of the land, the sky turns black as ink. Zeus's bolt hits the mast with the force of a falling meteor. The ship shatters into 1,000 pieces. Men are tossed into the boiling surf. Their cries are lost in the storm. One by one, they go under. Only Odysseus, who never touched the meat, managed to grab a piece of the broken mast. He is alone. His ship is gone. His friends are gone. He is just a man, drifting on a piece of wood at the mercy of the sea. The prophecy has come true. Odysseus is the only survivor, and he's heading back toward Charybdis for one showdown with the whirlpool. The voyage, a little bit more lonelier. Wait, screw that. A lot more lonelier. Stay tuned for episode 5. And that's it for today's episode, and next week we have the epic finale of the Odyssey coming right up. So be sure to stay tuned and turn on the notifications when we post a new episode next week. My name is Ariel, I'm 11 years old, and I will see you next episode. Bye!